4:14 a.m. The desert air was still, almost too still. No sirens, no scrambling boots, just the buzz of an old fluorescent light and a sleepy hum from the base generators. It was the kind of silence that makes your instincts itch. Right before the sky breaks open, unseen, high above and then low to the horizon, 21 drones had already crossed into strike range. Not your average recon units. These were the kind of drones you build in a garage, wire up with explosives, and send off with one goal: make something big burn. And they were headed straight for a U.S. military fuel depot, the artery that keeps helicopters flying, convoys rolling, and forward outposts from going dark. No alarms yet. Then came the first ping on radar. 1, then 5, then 21. They were moving fast, hugging terrain, swerving just below traditional radar detection. Homemade or not, they were flying smart. The base didn't know it yet, but it was less than 60 seconds away from being punched in the gut. Suddenly, the alert sirens snapped on. Red lights blinked to life. Across the base, soldiers jumped out of cots, boots slamming concrete as CRAM systems fired up with their signature roar. Like a buzzsaw chewing metal, the sky lit up. Some drones were torn apart midair by automatic fire. One got scrambled mid-flight, probably by jamming tech, and spiraled down like a drunk mosquito. But two made it in. One slammed into the perimeter wall with a thud that sent a ripple through the concrete. The other hit near the fuel depot. Not a direct hit, but enough. A sharp whomp, then fire. Not a Hollywood explosion, just a rising column of oily black smoke, laced with that unmistakable scent of burning chemicals, then silence again. No one moved. No one spoke, but everyone on that base knew two things. Someone just sent a message loud and clear. The U.S. was going to respond, and it wasn't going to be quiet. So, how does the most advanced military base in the region let two enemy drones punch straight through and nearly light up a fuel depot? Short answer: they weren't normal drones. These weren't military-grade UAVs with flashing green lights and stamped serial numbers. These were low-signature, low-budget, high-effect death machines, built in workshops using carbon fiber shells, commercial parts, and satellite spoofing technology. And they were smart, just smart enough. Here's what they did. Instead of flying in like a swarm of wasps, they staggered their flight paths, flying nap of the earth, barely above desert shrubs and dunes, to avoid radar sweep arcs. Some even took curved routes, exploiting known blind spots in the base's older tracking systems. In total, 21 drones launched. Roughly 70% were intercepted, either shot down by CRAM systems, scrambled with jammers, or knocked off course by portable EW units. But a handful made it far too close for comfort. Two slipped through everything. The first one, carrying a low-grade explosive payload, struck a storage building on the edge of the base. Minimal damage, but it was enough to trigger a full lockdown. The second one? That was the scary one. It had clearly been programmed for a GPS-targeted detonation near the fuel depot. The exact location where you could cause maximum disruption without needing pinpoint accuracy. It didn't strike the tank directly, but the resulting fire from surrounding containers was enough to knock operations offline for hours, send out plumes of smoke visible for miles, and wake up every analyst in CENTCOM. The cost of the drone? Maybe $2,000 in parts. The cost of the response? You're about to find out. This wasn't just a drone attack. It was a probe, a test, a low-cost way for an adversary to poke the world's most expensive military machine and see what happens. And what happened next? The retaliation wasn't just tactical, it was psychological. The kind that says, Don't think we didn't notice. At exactly 4:21 a.m., the flames were still licking the edge of the fuel depot perimeter. On satellite images, the smoke looked like a black claw scraping the desert. But here's the part no drone pilot from across the Persian Gulf anticipated. There was no retaliation. No jets screamed off the tarmac. No emergency press conference. Not even a vague tweet. Instead, there was silence. But if you were anywhere near that base, you'd know. Silence didn't mean nothing was happening. It meant everything was happening, quietly. Inside the command bunker, nobody yelled. Nobody ran. Because this wasn't the first time they'd seen this play. They'd drilled this scenario 16 times in the last 4 months. But this time, it wasn't a simulation. And everyone knew the stakes were now geopolitical. And the first move? Contain, analyze, and don't take the bait. While the fire response units worked overtime to stop a chain reaction, electronic warfare teams were already triangulating the source of the drone signals. One was traced to a fishing boat transmitting off a relay. The other? A camouflaged land-based controller buried under a sheep herder's shack. Yes, that's how deep this rabbit hole went. The most chilling part? None of the launch points were in Iranian territory. They were in neutral borderlands, places that gave Iran plausible deniability while still twisting the knife. And the U.S. command understood the game. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message. We can strike your fuel while you sleep, and you won't even know who lit the match. And how do you answer that kind of message? Not with rage, with restraint, with calculated fury. By 4:50 a.m., 2 MQ-9 Reapers were already airborne on a silent sweep. No flares, no payloads, just watching, recording, identifying. By 5:30, the Pentagon had looped in Strategic Command in Germany, and CENTCOM was already lining up targets not for revenge, but for leverage. They weren't looking to start a war. They were planning a message of their own, one made of precision, deniability, and absolute clarity. By sunrise, the desert sky was a dull orange, eerily peaceful, considering what had just happened under its cover. But up above, 22,000 feet in the air, there was no peace. Just focus. Because while the Iranian drones had made their move at 4:15 a.m., by 6:02 a.m., the response phase had already begun. And no, it wasn't missiles or airstrikes. It was satellites, surveillance, signal tracing, the kind of warfare you don't see on CNN. You see, what most people miss is that modern retaliation doesn't always come with a bang. It comes with data. Metadata, specifically. The Reaper drones that went up before dawn weren't there to strike. They were there to scan, thermal imaging, signal triangulation, visual confirmation. Within 90 minutes, they had marked 3 suspect vehicles in the desert outskirts, 120 miles from the drone's suspected launch zone. One of them had its engine off but was radiating an encrypted short-burst frequency, the same signature used in the attack. A second was carrying a strange antenna rig not used by civilians, but used often by proxies with Iranian ties. The third? A decoy. Guess which one had a live feed to a small shack disguised as a butcher's shed in southern Iraq? Bullseye. But still, no missiles. Instead, a satellite pass at 6:44 a.m. delivered a thermal overlay revealing fresh tire marks, power outputs, and even how many people had walked in and out of the structure. This wasn't just surveillance. It was mapping a shadow network in real time. Because the message back wasn't going to be public. It was going to be personal, precise, and untraceable. At 7:15 a.m., Washington gave the green light, not for a strike, but for something far more surgical, Digital blackout protocols. Within minutes, the small shack's comms went dark. No more uplink. No more signal relay. No more remote operation. And guess what? The moment they tried to reroute through a backup satellite band, a second invisible ping marked the exact location of the secondary relay, 200 miles away, buried under an abandoned agricultural depot. Two more dots on the map. Every failed attempt at evasion added another target without firing a shot. And while all this was happening, the attackers, if they were even still alive, had no idea the hunter had become the cartographer. This was the new age of combat. Forget the explosions. Follow the power surge. And when you strike U.S. assets in 2025, don't expect a camera-ready reply. Expect to vanish, quietly, surgically, and completely. At exactly 7:59 a.m., a tiny but unmistakable sound echoed across a cold command center in Al Udeid Air Base. A mouse click. No sirens. No shouting. Just one deliberate click, executed by a cyber ops lieutenant who looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Because that's how real warfare starts now. Not with bombs, but with bandwidth. That click deployed a kill chain. Within seconds, data packets surged across 4 encrypted relay nodes, bouncing from Qatar to Stuttgart, then back down to a low-orbit satellite hovering over southern Iraq. Its task? One of the most advanced recon-assisted AI targeting protocols ever fielded in the open. Codename: Spectre 12. It didn't launch missiles. It highlighted vulnerabilities, in real time, on a 3-dimensional interface that only 5 people on Earth had clearance to access. It mapped subsurface bunkers using minute temperature differentials. It tracked power line hum through concrete. It flagged 2 escape vehicles idling 5 kilometers outside the perimeter, tagged with fake NGO decals and remote ignition systems. At 8:12 a.m., back in the White House Situation Room, a single word was spoken: authorized. No Hollywood countdown, no tension music, just a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, already in the sky, running a holding pattern for the last 6 hours over Jordanian airspace. You didn't hear it. You weren't supposed to. It dropped 2 modified JDAMs with low collateral, structure-penetrating payloads. And here's the twist. They didn't hit the shack. They hit the network nodes, the source of the drone guidance signal. 3 points triangulated hours earlier by those failed comms reroutes. No explosion visible from a village, no news alert, no trace. But if you were sitting at a laptop in that shack, your screen would have gone black, your backups fried, your signal gone. And if you were in the escape vehicle, engine wouldn't turn, dashboard would glow red. Then, nothing. Because this wasn't revenge. It was erasure. You thought you launched an attack? You triggered a quiet deletion of your coordinates, your safe house, your mission capability. In less than 3 hours, Spectre 12, that one click, and a decades-old bomber reduced a militant drone cell to digital silence. No photo ops. No victory parade. Just one message delivered. We know where you sleep, and we'll turn out the lights. By 8:27 a.m., the fuel depot was still smoldering, but the war had moved somewhere far stranger, into confusion. Back in Tehran, there was no official statement, no footage, no martyr video. Just dead silence on the usual encrypted chatter channels. Iranian handlers tried to ping their remaining drones. No response. They rerouted signals. Still nothing. To the outside world, it looked like nothing more than a power hiccup, But inside that shack, what was left of it, every data node was fried, every hard drive fused into glass. A burnt smell lingered where a command post had been. The escape vehicles, still parked, untouched, but with their circuits melted from the inside out. It was like someone had walked in, turned off the lights, and then deleted the entire room from existence. Satellite imagery reviewed 20 minutes later by CENTCOM analysts revealed a perfect triangle. 3 points of destruction, invisible to the naked eye, but clear in infrared. No more heat signatures, no residual tech pulses, no signals. Just a technological black hole. Then came the real panic. Several Telegram-based militant channels went offline. One by one. Accounts disappeared. Commanders went silent. A leak from a regional source claimed 2 mid-level drone coordinators were found unconscious. No wounds, no burns, just collapsed beside non-functioning laptops. EM pulse, nerve shock, cyber reversal protocol? No one knew. And that was the most terrifying part. Even within Iranian internal circles, questions started surfacing. How did the Americans find the shack? How did they trace the signal that quickly? Why didn't we detect the bomber? But the most chilling question was the one no one dared say out loud. What if they were never targeting the shack? What if they were targeting our entire doctrine? The attack had been swift, yes, but also surgical, psychological. It wasn't just about damage. It was about making them afraid to try again. Because in war, you can rebuild a base. But when your signal flow is compromised, when your commanders are scared to open a laptop, when you don't even know how you were hit, you're not just beaten, you're paralyzed. Later that day, in a closed-door NATO briefing, a 3-word phrase was repeated 6 times. Non-attributable dominance. No flag, no fingerprints, just unmistakable impact. One general in the room allegedly leaned back, looked at the screen of fried hardware and said, "This is what 21st century retaliation looks like. You don't see it. You don't hear it. You just lose connection." And so, by the time local news outlets caught wind of the earlier attack on the U.S. base, the story had already shifted from U.S. base damaged by Iranian drones to something eerier. Unknown cyber response neutralizes regional drone threat in under 3 hours. The battlefield had moved. And Iran just learned what it feels like to be ghosted by a superpower. By the time the sun fully rose over the Syrian horizon, the strike was no longer about drones, fuel, or even retaliation. It had become a message, one that echoed far beyond the desert. To Iran, it was a black hole in their playbook. A reminder that launching drones is easy, until someone yanks the wires from the other side. They expected explosions. They got erasure. And the erasure wasn't just physical, it was strategic, psychological, because Iran woke up to something worse than destruction, not knowing what hit them. No war declaration, no press release, no operatic "this will not stand" speech. Just vanishing data, dead signal, and the sickening realization that someone was inside their systems, and could be again. Meanwhile, the Pentagon didn't spike the football. No tweets, no boasts, just a 2-line statement that read like it was written by a spreadsheet. An attack occurred, minimal damage, all appropriate measures have been taken. And as for the rest of the world? Everyone paid attention, quietly, closely. From Beijing to Pyongyang to Moscow, the lesson was the same. Don't test America's silence. It might be louder than their noise. This wasn't a war. This wasn't even a battle. This was a demonstration. A high-tech, Low profile, strategically genius reminder that while drone warfare has become everyone's weapon, asymmetry still exists. Iran used 21 drones. The US replied with, what exactly? Maybe a stealth bomber. Maybe a cyber ops suite buried in a shipping container outside Aleppo. Maybe something we don't even have a name for yet. But the result was crystal clear. No second wave. No follow-up launch. No retaliation. Just silence. And in war, silence isn't peace. It's a warning. So what comes next? Not a press conference. Not a military parade. But maybe, just maybe, a pause. A moment where nations that once flexed through drone swarms now hesitate. Because now they've seen what a truly modern response looks like. But somewhere in a dim operations room, someone's staring at a blinking cursor on a clean screen and thinking, next time, we might not be that lucky. Because luck had nothing to do with it. Just precision, planning, and a level of quiet dominance that reminds the world, when you strike America, you better pray you hear something back. Because silence? That's when the real damage begins.